All right. It is Monday night. It is Protect You Radio. This is John McCreary, and I'm here tonight with my backup singers. Well, one of them, the mistress of marksmanship, the lady of lead. I've got Candy Petticord with me tonight.
I like that.
Yeah, Marion can't join us tonight. How sad.
We miss you, Marion.
Yeah, if you're listening, I hope you're out there. And if not, we'll get you back next week, hopefully. But, yeah, we'll have a little fun tonight. Just the two of us hanging out, talking smack.
Just the two of us.
Just talking smack. Maybe talk about some guns and self-defense and other shenanigans like that. So we'll have a good time with it. If you want to get part of the be part of the show tonight, give us a call at 330-673-2428, which is chat, 2428 or chat. So give us a call, and if not, just hang out and listen and relax and try not to fall asleep. Good stuff.
With us?
I know, right?
Come on now.
So it's Ken. How was your week?
Fantastic. How about yours?
It's another beautiful week. It's only Monday so far, but it feels like I've been. So we were just talking about how mixed up my schedule is with working overnights and stuff, and I'm literally thinking it's like a Saturday night, but it is Monday.
Yes.
So the week, there's not much to talk about yet.
I know. Sure, like, how was your week? Well, just
8 hours of it.
starting.
Yeah. Oh, I think I rolled out of bed at like 3 today, and I'm like, what day is it? I'm so lost. But any gun-related stuff for you this week? Any well-armed women stuff?
Yeah, we have our meeting coming up tomorrow, and of course, because you just asked me that, I am totally blanking out. We have a really awesome guest speaker coming tomorrow, and I'm totally blanking out on his name. So I guess you'll just have to come to our meeting and find out who it is.
You know what? We should do a podcast from there, a live show from there one week. That might be a lot of fun.
Oh, that would be fun.
Check out who's there and talk to some people. Figure out why they got involved and what keeps them coming back. Because it sounds like you guys got a good group going on. So that's kind of exciting and important. And people coming back. That's always a hard part.
Coming back is a good thing.
Yeah. So I suddenly this week became a gear guy. I rarely get into the. I know it sounds weird, but I'm not usually the guy who gets into the. I'm looking at lots of guns, and I have a couple guns. I carry them around, and I use the guns I have, and I don't have a bunch of stuff. But for some reason this week, the 9mm pistol caliber carbines have caught my attention again, and I don't why. Maybe my coworker kind of got me on it. There's this 9mm pistol thing out there called a Strybog? I think it's a Strybog. And I have never seen this thing before, but it's kind of like the little Scorpions, and it comes out of Slovakia, and the price is fairly decent, because I kind of like those Ruger 9mm carbines.
Right.
Kind of cool. And he's like, no, those are junk. And I'm like, come on, what do you... And he starts whipping out all these real expensive ones, and he goes, but there's this one from Slovakia, which scared me at first. I'm thinking, I'm going to be able to find parts for it if the thing breaks, but it's been really popular.
If you go to Slovakia.
What's the matter
with you?
I was like, what in
Easy
the heck?
peasy.
Yeah, right. So, yeah, I'm going to check into it and see. The only thing that scares me are the proprietary magazines. Anytime you start talking proprietary magazines.
Cha-ching.
Right? They're cheap. They give you 3 with the gun.
Where's my bell?
Cha-ching. Oh, there it is. I forgot about that. How could I forget the bell?
I know. How'd you forget the bell? It's sitting right there glowing, waving at you.
Yeah, all these other things. You know, the ADD kid with all the lights and stuff on the board. It's
don't touch the buttons.
It's amazing.
Keep your hands off the board. And keep the water away from the board this time.
I'll drop it on my own computer this time. So
any crackling you hear is
it's either my brain going right off the edge, or it could be who knows what it is.
And when you hear bump, 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 that's Candy running.
We get electrocuted. That's awesome.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
That's right. Any other shenanigans you see this week, gun related, that stuck out weird or anything?
No, not really. I think with this warm weather we're having, people are starting to get itchy to get back out on the range.
Yeah, I think outdoors ranges are going to start picking up here in the next week or two. But next week it's going to drop back to probably -3.
I know, right? And 15 feet of snow. But I know my trigger finger's getting itchy. I want to be back out on the range now. The weather was beautiful today. I mean, it was like perfect range weather.
Except I'm afraid if you get out today, you'd sink into your knees in the mud. And
I know.
It'd be a whole different. How to fight off mud monsters?
You shoot them. Duh.
Thank you. Duh. Now, when I was a kid, mud monsters didn't go away. You had to dry them out in the sun or something. But that's just me.
You dried out the mud monsters.
It's just the first thing that popped in my head. Candy, stop it.
Okay, hon. We'll talk after.
You should know better than to try to analyze anything I say.
901. We talk. I don't know why it's there. I saw it when I came in. I'm like, who was doing what in here before we got here?
That might be the stoner group on, what is that, Friday nights or something? So, sorry, guys. I literally reached over and picked up. There's a can of Febreze Air Hawaiian. I wonder. Yes, I get home at night sometimes. I go, what does that smell? And it's probably the Air Febreze Hawaiian. So
makes you wonder what they were doing.
You never know what you're going to find in
here.
this studio. Dry erase marker, cough drops, and Air Hawaiian. So.
And empty Coke cans. If they're going to leave cans, they need to have Coke in them.
Oh, I didn't
Fluid
see it. Look
Coke.
at that. How funny.
Like Coca-Cola.
Coca-Cola.
That kind.
Yes, absolutely. So this week we're going to kind of try to focus. We'll see what happens.
I know. We're not doing too well so far.
We never do.
This is true.
That's true.
Life is short. Have fun with it.
Absolutely. So I think we're going to talk a little bit about how do you prove self-defense in Ohio? How do you get in court and talk about, I did what I was supposed to do according to the law, and lethal force. What's that mean in Ohio? When it's appropriate, things like that. When I'm teaching, this seems to be the hotter topics, as opposed to, hey, there's the hole in the end of the gun. Don't point that at your eye. I mean, it's stuff that you need to understand, but I think it's way more important that you get a good grasp on the, hey, what's the outcomes? What going into a self-defense situation? When can I act? And I try to tell my students, anyways, when I'm teaching is, guys, walk through, I call them if-thens, or if-when. If this happens, then I'm going to react like this. Now, what I find is we start talking with students, and it's you don't know what you don't know. Their if-then sometimes are, if somebody talks bad to me, then I'm going to draw my gun and threaten them. Oh, okay. This is going to sound like a game show tonight, because we're going to do some playing of the if-then, Alex Trebek's going to be, what is long time in jail?
Ding, 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 for 500.
That's exactly it. So I think we're going to run through some of that kind of stuff tonight and discuss it. And so, Candy, when you're teaching, what seems to be some of the bigger questions you get on the laws? That always seems to be a hot topic and a burning topic right off the bat. And are there things that you hear and you go, ooh, that might get you in trouble?
Yeah, actually, I'm surprised at how many people I hear who, like I come home and I see somebody in my house and there shouldn't be anybody in there. Well, I'm going to go in there and confront that person. No.
Were you sitting in my class last week?
Uh-huh.
That is the first question I got. The young lady said, what if I pull up in the driveway and I see somebody inside? I want to go in and get them.
No, you put the car in reverse. You get a safe distance away and you dial 911.
I said, you carry your phone, right? She said, yeah. I said, what possible reason could you have for going in your home?
Because they're stealing my stuff.
Yes. So much of this with people is it's about my stuff.
Hey, guys, that's why we have insurance.
Yeah, there's absolutely, in that situation, almost zero reason to go in. The only reason I would go into that situation is if I came home and I knew my kids were home.
There you go.
And I saw somebody in there.
Totally different ballgame.
That's a different situation, right? Mm-hmm. So I think people sometimes have trouble balancing that.
That's when you break the AR out of the trunk and you still don't need to go inside.
That's right. You call the neighbors and you go, hey, we're rolling on the house. We're doing a search. There's a reason police officers don't search houses by themselves if they don't have to. And
this is true.
Yeah, they either, they get a dog or they get a partner, and sometimes they have to, but I'm just a short, fat kid behind a microphone. I am not Joe Tactical, and sweeping through my house is not, unless I got an actual broom. My wife told me to do it. There's no reason for me to sweep the house.
Pretty much. Yeah. I like that.
That's all those
and
memes.
John, you're not a kid.
No, believe me, I get into, listen, my knees would creak because I went up the steps and people would be like, I hear him coming. They'd hear me coming a long way off. So,
it's funny you mentioned that too. I have heard that because I've been to a number of trainings and I always hear, okay, there is just no good way to search a house by yourself. Searching a house by yourself sucks. If there's any way at all you can avoid it, don't do it.
Yeah.
You said, there's a reason police officers do not search houses alone.
Yeah, there's whole 2-day classes that people can take on that kind of stuff. After 2 or 3 days, though, even, you are not probably set to be handling that. And again, there's going to be times you may have to. I mean, you might be forced into a situation where, again, the kids sleep on the other side of the house and you're in your side of the house. There might be a time where you have to make distance and clear across that house and get to the kids, and that makes sense. But in that situation where you're pulling up and there's nobody and you're out, if there's somebody in the house, no, 911, they are paid to do that. We are not paid to do that. And I know it's your stuff, and they might get your big screen TV, and they might get your, grandma's dishes that she left you when she was passing away. But take grandma's dishes. You probably didn't like them in the first place. She made you take them.
Pretty much.
That's just what it is. So Yeah, and the other one I get sometimes is, and this one's as old as time, is shoot them outside and drag them in the house.
Okay.
Thank you, Alex.
Gosh. Okay,
Yeah.
so that was actually covered in my CCW class. Are we allowed to say names?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay,
I'm all-
my because I wanna be PC. Yeah, right. That's why I carry a gun. My CCW teacher, Dan Clevenger, is also law enforcement, and that came up in our class, and he was like, "Guys, do not." I'm the guy who will come in and prove that you shot him outside and drug him in the house. It's not that hard to prove. Don't do that. I don't care what your grandfather's, brothers, cousins tells you to do. Don't do that.
And that's usually what I hear is my uncle was a cop who was related to a military guy who shot somebody one time with his eyes closed. I'm like, what?
Uh-huh.
Blood
And
splatter.
with his pinky.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
Blood splatter is a science unto itself. That if you shot through that person, they're bleeding, guess what? There's going to be a blood splatter trail or droplets as you drag them. Guess what? I'm old and decrepit. It is very hard for me to drag a large person without literally dragging them. There's going to be boot marks where I drug them. There's going to be, they're going to be like, John, why are you all hunched over like that? Did you hurt your back somehow? Yeah, dragging that big person back into my house.
Pretty much. And
Yeah.
don't try the bleach thing either, because they'll know you bleached it. I mean, it's just don't do that. Just
Now,
do
why
not
did-
do that.
Why did you bleach all the gravel in front of your house?
Well,
Why is there bleach marks in the outline of a body? It's kind of weird.
well, there was this cat out there and couldn't get rid of that smell.
That's funny. So I think we're going to kind of discuss basically what Ohio says in their little law book, and that's probably the best place to look. Now, if you're looking at that little booklet that the Ohio Attorney General puts out, that book is a great overview. But if you want to dig deep, get into the Ohio Revised Code, and when you look at that booklet, it gives you points of where it is in the Ohio Revised Code. Now, I will give you a tip. If you know anyone who suffers from insomnia, read the Ohio Revised Code.
That'll cure it.
Oh my gosh! You
Yep.
want to go to sleep fast?
That'll
That
cure
is
it.
It's written by lawyers for lawyers. and
Page
judges.
1, you're
Yeah,
out.
Yeah, it's crazy, but this, like I said, this Attorney General pamphlet does a pretty good job of laying that stuff out. So one of my favorite lines in this entire book, this is the page that gets into deadly force. Ohio law specifically says, fourth, that a handgun is a deadly weapon capable of causing death. That is your tax dollars at work.
Wow. Oh my God.
Who knew?
Woo! Who knew?
I bought that gun as a decorative piece.
But
Who knew that it could cause death? I was like, really? Somebody sat down and wrote that entire line.
And how much did they get paid to do so?
Again, your tax dollars at work.
Uh-huh.
So
And yet we still have potholes.
use this pamphlet to fill them
I know, right?
with words like that. So in Ohio, and this is right from the pamphlet, in Ohio, deadly force can be used only to prevent serious bodily harm or death. Deadly force can never be used to protect property only. Depending on the specific facts and circumstances of the situation, use of deadly force may lead to criminal charges and or civil liability. That's what? Because I have a license, it doesn't mean I can just shoot whenever I want?
Are you serious?
Yeah, I thought because I took this class, I could just, whenever I
Man,
felt like...
I'm turning mine back in. Dag nabbit.
And people make some assumptions like that. I've had other instructors tell me they had a guy who said, I can't wait to get my license so I can go to Walmart and take care of business.
Do you hear the crickets? They're screaming right now.
I was like, what kind of
They
business
are.
you doing at Walmart? Are you a vendor? What? I was like, man, I would throw somebody like that out of class. I'd be like, listen, you either need to change your attitude or you need to hit the road because that is not cutting it in this class. But it's just amazing what people hear and what they think. And that's all right. It is what it is. Kind of further down in their pamphlet, it says, if law enforcement and prosecutors determine that a person's use of deadly force is not justified, criminal charges may be pursued. So you're talking about felonious assault, aggravated assault, attempted murder, manslaughter. All of those things, if you screw this up, are all things that could cause you some very serious time in prison. So, again, as we've covered in the past, John is too pretty for prison. So
Yes.
I try to dig into this.
John meets Bubba.
Look at Iris.
Not a
I
good
started
thing.
sweating. I started breaking out even thinking about me being in prison. That's a horrible. Wow. Yeah, I got a headache. I think show's over. Good night. We'll see you next
I know,
week.
right?
Whew, getting short of breath and everything else.
John,
Wow.
you're getting whiter than you naturally are. That's scary.
Which is, yeah, I've heard, the pale Irish guy. It gets hard to.
That's saying something.
Wow. Yeah. So guess what? Even if you are found not guilty, say you shot this person, they needed to be shot. Does it clear your civil liability?
Absolutely not.
What do you mean? How does that?
No. Because then they come knocking on your door with the civil suit.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yep.
No,
and that's when you find out that Johnny, who was, okay, maybe he was walking out with your TV and your half your bed seat and all this junk, and maybe he was, but he's a good boy. He's always been a good boy, and you had no right to shoot him. It's like, oh, for crying out loud, please.
I wish that you said. I wish I could find the clip of was it a brother and sister? So this kid got shot in a self-defense situation, and the brother and the sister especially, she said they didn't have any right to shoot him because that's how he gets his money to get shoes and books for school. I said, okay, I understand, but maybe a job.
Job?
Dude. I was like, what? That was the strangest. I remember, and this, again, we've talked about this, Candy and I, William April does a whole series around They Don't Think Like Us.
Yes.
And you're
absolutely
right. For that person who is a true sociopath, I need your stuff right now to make my life better.
Yep.
And I'm not going to think long-term consequence.
And I don't care about you.
Right. If I have to hurt you in the process to get what I need right now, that's crazy. And
then you've got the sociopath sister who's like, well, yeah, that's how he gets what he gets.
That must be
What's
genetic.
wrong with that? And you have no right to interfere with that. No.
Wow. So yeah, you could end up against a wrongful death lawsuit in a situation like that, where
yes, you could.
You've shot somebody and they come back because that person was an outstanding saint and was going on to cure cancer. My wife talks about this. She's like, listen, when I die, don't make me out to be a saint. Just tell her when I was an a-hole. It's like kind of this situation, same
Alrighty
thing. You
then.
got shot. Wow, it's terrifying. So the law is going to require that the force used be reasonable and necessary to prevent the danger. So even if the victim was wrong and caused a situation, if the force was inappropriate or excessive for that particular situation, the defendant risks criminal or civil punishment. So now you're getting into the force that you used. Was it justifiable? Was it, of the same standard? So if somebody's attacking you, if a 4-year-old attacks you with a thing of Play-Doh and you fight back and use excessive force, okay, yeah, we're gonna convict the 4-year-old because they shouldn't attack you with the Play-Doh. Yes, using extremes here, but we are going to civilly get you sued because your return force was excessive. So that's a crazy concept for some people. They're like, "What do you mean? The criminal has more rights?" I'm like, not so much rights.
Not
you just
really.
need to think
just
through
common
your stuff.
sense. If you come up, there you go.
Common sense.
If you come up, punch me in the arm, I cannot turn around and blow your brains out, no matter how much I may want to.
Yeah, and this gets into a whole thing of disparity of force, and this gets into what are those 3 conditions we're going to have to meet to prove self-defense. And people just don't quite understand some of the stuff, and they don't get that far into it. They just make assumptions because somebody took my stuff, because somebody tried to hurt me. So it gets a little kooky. So let's kind of rip through some of the conditions you have to meet in Ohio, because they lay them out pretty specifically, but even those conditions sometimes can get a little gray. So the first one in Ohio, you have to prove this, you have to show this to be able to act in self-defense. So the first one is the defendant is not at fault. The defendant must not have created the situation. The defendant cannot be the first aggressor or initiator. However, in proving the victim's fault, a defendant cannot point to other unrelated situations in which the victim was the aggressor. Remember, the focus is on the specific facts of the situation at hand. So, even if somebody yesterday said, hey, I'm going to come kill you, you see them today, you can't start a fight with them over that and be like, hey, you threatened me yesterday, I'm going to kill you today. Ooh, I can't defend myself unless they've shown me some means of how they would kill me. So if Candy pokes me in the eye, she's thought about it a few times, I'm sure, and she backs up, and then I was like, Candy, it wasn't very nice, and I attack her and she shoots me, she probably lost her right to self-defense.
Nobody saw me poke you in the eye.
And most people would probably turn their back if it came to something. They'd be like, John did it. I guarantee it.
He did it.
She's a sweet angel.
You hold on to that one.
So it says right in the pamphlet, if you escalate a confrontation by throwing the first punch, attacking or drawing your handgun, you are the aggressor. Most likely in this situation, you cannot legitimately claim self-defense, nor would you likely succeed in proving your affirmative defense. So affirmative defense in Ohio basically says it's now on the prosecutor. They have to prove that you did something wrong, all that good stuff. So, yeah, you can't start it, you guys. I know there are times when you want to lash out. There are times when people hurt your feelings. I know. And I literally had somebody in class ask this one, something about, if somebody's up on me and they're talking bad about me and my family, I'm probably going to draw my gun.
And we'll be visiting you in jail.
Yeah.
No. No.
And I understand, believe me, I was the first guy at, 20s and 30s. I'd probably want to throw down over something like that. You can talk about me. Don't talk about my family, my kids, my wife. No, absolutely not. But you have to hold yourself to a little bit higher standard. Now, you could, if it became sort of a fisticuffs type thing or start shoving, you technically can shove back. But we'll get into the third condition, which is duty to retreat, especially when you start getting into lethal force and self-defense. So,
fisticuffs?
Fisticuffs, yeah. So it goes with catawampus.
Dude.
Have you ever
accelerated quickly?
Have you never been in fisticuffs before?
Well, not that I want to talk about on the radio.
Fisticuffs, yes, a fight. As this like, old folks say. I do need to update my vocabulary, don't I?
They say an armed society is a polite society for a reason, because the majority of the time, I would say, people who carry, they don't want to be involved in anything. We don't.
I agree.
We really don't. We train for it, but heaven knows we pray that we never have to use it. We do.
Yeah, that is an excellent point, because most of the people I know who carry their guns do it for that reason. They don't want to be in a situation. They've done it because maybe they've dealt with a situation before and they don't want to be back in it.
Right.
That is a great point. And I don't think people look at it that way most of the time, especially anti-gun people. They look at it as, oh, you are a bloodthirsty... I saw a website as I was doing some research for this week. What the heck was that thing called? CCW Killers. Dun, 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 dun. What CCW? So they were making the assumption because you had a CCW or
You're
CHL.
A killer.
You're a killer. I was
crying out loud,
baffled by this, and then they started trying to use statistics to show how horrible we are, and it was like, well, this many. So I forget, like 1,000 cases or something they looked at, and of those there was almost 600 that were suicide. I was like, don't paint me as a killer.
Up.
Yeah, I was like, you're painting me as this mad killer, but those people were acting to themselves. They weren't out killing other people. Yeah, it was really. I got to look that website back up because I literally burst out laughing at first, and then I got mad.
They were mad suiciders.
Yeah,
that's it. No, it's not killer. It's suicider.
Suicide.
I'm not laughing at the people, but for crying out loud.
I know this is a very serious topic, but suiciders.
Suiciders.
Oh my God, that's great. I remember that one. That's in the vocabulary now. I'm updating. See?
Cattywampus and suiciders.
You're a suicider. I know you are. That's great. So that's the first condition. Defendant cannot be at fault. Second condition, Ohio, you have to meet reasonable and honest belief of danger. So the defendant must have had a belief that he was in immediate danger of death or great bodily harm, and that use of deadly force was the only way to escape that danger. Bear in mind, deadly force may only be used to protect against serious bodily harm or death. And how do they define serious, Candy? Have you talked through this a little bit, or how would you define serious?
Oh, yeah. Actually, we did talk about this. Serious is anything that causes you pain at the time, or extended pain, or prolonged pain, or any of that good stuff. It doesn't have to kill you, but if it makes you wish it had, I think that falls within that definition.
Yeah, and I've heard people say a couple define serious bodily harm as anything that would long-term harm you physically. So maybe something that would leave scarring, or you poke an eye out, that's long-term bodily harm, or
right.
Long-term and serious bodily harm, death. You think you're going to die. You're probably going to see serious bodily harm on the way to death.
Right. So yeah.
Yeah, serious bodily harm, and that gets, some different points going on, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, but I had an attorney tell me, a good ass whooping does not justify deadly force.
Right.
Oh. But then I think you get into some disparity of force there, because if you get into a situation for serious bodily harm if I'm dealing with somebody who's similar age, shape, size, background, and we go to punching each other in the noggin, what's serious bodily harm at that point? Is it, bumps and bruises, or is it, okay, I'm now fighting somebody who I know is an MMA fighter? Does that shift that burden of serious bodily harm, or what I think I might die because I'm being beaten by somebody I know is a professional fighter? Oh, different story. Is it getting into, serious bodily harm or death? In your mind, is a 300-pound man attacking a 90-year-old woman, is that going to be held to a different standard than what I might have to prove?
Yes, absolutely.
I think so too.
Yes.
It's going to be that disparity.
And it should be.
I agree. There is no one in this country who's going to look at a 90-year-old woman and go, "Oh, why didn't you retreat?" What do you mean retreat? I got a bad hip. I'm on a walker, and he's kicking me in the head. He's an MMA fighter.
It's like, no.
There's no duty, and we'll get to duty retreat in a second. But
why did you shoot him 25 times?
Oh,
24 would have done it.
Right?
Crying out loud, bloodthirsty.
Yeah, you're right.
CCW.
You're right. So that gets into a whole nother aspect of this. So if you did act because you thought serious bodily harm or death, probably within your rights, and if you can prove it, awesome. Well, you don't have to prove it anymore. You just have to get them to prove that you didn't act in the way you shouldn't have.
But why didn't you only shoot him once?
Right. Yeah. So there's been some cases. There was one that came out of New York that a couple store owners, guy came into their store and threatened them with a gun. Actually, I take it back. There were two guys came in, threatened the store owners. The store owners fight back, and one of them shoots one of the guys. The guy goes down. Other one runs out the store. So one store owner chases the guy out the door. One store owner is standing over the guy who they've shot, and my understanding is the young lady maybe flinched or kind of tightened up and shot him again while he's on the ground. He gets in pain, screams, starts wiggling around. She shoots him again. I think she's just nervous at this point. Like 4 more times, just like lights him up. He dies. She gets charged with like murder or one of those. Yeah, so
well,
there's a point.
Let's take that as a learning episode.
Yeah.
Don't go trying to rob a store.
Thank you.
Crying out loud.
Yeah, but
if you weren't being stupid, you wouldn't be dead.
What is that? Stupid games. You would play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
There you go.
But there is a line there that you almost have to draw for yourself. And
yes.
You've got the serious bodily harm. You thought you might die. You fought back. The person is now on the ground, but not necessarily dead. If you go stand over that person after you've put them down and you shoot them 4 or 5 more times,
that's called an execution, and you're going to jail
you
for
are absolutely
long
going
time.
to jail. I know that's probably going to be in some people's soul, and some people are going to want to probably take a selfie because they're doing it. Listen, you guys, if you shoot somebody, no selfies. All right?
No, don't do that.
In court, that's going to never show up.
Crying out loud, don't post that anywhere. They'll find it.
So, when you're trying to decide whether bodily harm was serious, a judge or jury consider how the victim was attacked, any weapon the victim had, and how it was used against the defendant. So minor bruises and bumps and scuffle probably don't meet the legal definition of seriousness. In court cases, rape has been determined to be serious bodily harm.
Yep.
And has being attacked with scissors could be considered serious bodily harm. Anytime you might be struck with an object, if somebody else integrates any type of weapon into the attack, serious bodily harm or death, most likely. I mean, there's a good chance, and we've talked about this in the past, is I could literally pick up that can of Hawaiian Febreze and go to work on somebody with that can of Febreze.
And the last thing they smell, I thought I was in Hawaii.
I said they needed to be embalmed, so I just handle it one step, right? So, if somebody would come at you with something like a can of Febreze, now is it going to be easy to prove that a can of Febreze was something that's going to cause you serious bodily harm or death? This goes back to who had it in their hand. If a 4-year-old has a can of Febreze in their hand, that's not going to
slam him.
Probably not going to reach the legal definition of serious bodily harm.
Oh my gosh, Biff.
Yeah, it gets a little kooky.
What is it with you and 4-year-olds today? My goodness.
You should have met my kids when they were 4.
Like, why are they so violent?
Have you met their mother? Hopefully she's not listening tonight.
I know. If she is, you're going to have a hard
now.
night tonight, pal.
Yeah, I'm going to text any minute now.
You stop that.
Because every story I ever read on the internet, it's 2-year-olds that get shot, because the bullet overpenetrated and stuff like that. Never 3-year-olds, never 1-year-olds,
No,
2-year-olds.
no.
I don't know who started that trend, but
So keep all your 2-year-olds on the floor.
so when you're looking at things, serious bodily harm and reasons people attack, there are certain things you're going to have to prove under self-defense. When you have that definition of reasonable belief of serious bodily harm, there are some things that some case law kind of shows that there are things even inside of that you're going to have to prove. So one of those, and I kind of kidding with this, was the ability. Can the attacker physically do enough damage to rise to the level of serious injury or death?
Right.
Do they actually have the ability to kill you? Is the weapon, again, they lay this out in the manual, do just fists and feet fall to that? Depends. If somebody's wearing steel toe boots and they go to kicking you in the noggin and they're crushing your dome, yeah, but...
Or if they're a skilled fighter with their hands and feet.
Yeah.
I mean, they can have no, quote, weapon at all, but if they're skilled with their hands and feet are their weapons.
Yeah, and I had to come up in class one time was, John, I know a lot of guys who are MMA guys, and, if I would get in a fight with them, would I be able to prove that I had a higher fear of bodily harm or death because of their background? And I said, if you can prove it in court, sometimes that stuff gets suppressed. Oh, that's exciting.
I know, right?
So I'm now looking at a guy who looks similar in size to me, similar in age, and we got into a, air quotes, fight, but I was getting beat and, seriously beaten to the ground. And those guys could kill you with their hands and feet.
As you were laying on the ground, semi-conscious,
Right.
Someone put his picture in front of your face, and you're like, oh, and his nickname is Killer Dude. Got it.
Yeah, so that's a tough
Probably should
one.
have showed me that before I started running my mouth.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Oh, that's funny. I had that discussion with somebody last night. It was just along those lines was, you don't know who you're fighting with anymore.
No, you do not. And you go mouthing off to these people or flipping off somebody or something, and they get out.
Yeah.
People are whack nowadays. You do not know who you're dealing with. So no. You keep your snark to yourself.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. So again, you have to look at the ability. Did they have the ability? Did you know that they had ability to hurt you, harm you, kill you? So that's the first thing. Now, mind you, you're doing all this under stress and going quickly. The second thing under belief of serious bodily harm or death is opportunity. Do they have the opportunity to seriously kill or injure me? And sometimes this is focused on proximity.
Right. That's a huge focus. I mean, if they've got a knife, oh my gosh, but they've got a knife at the other end of the building, not even the hall, the other end of the building, and you just happen to see the glimmer of it from the sun hitting it. No, that's not going to wash. And you shot him. That's not going to wash.
No.
It's just not.
With my luck, it's some chef coming through the building that day, and I decided to cap him because
I
he had a
just
knife
wanted
out.
to make sushi. Oh.
So yeah, that's Candy hit that one on the head, man. If somebody's out of range to really be serious bodily harm to you, you can't just, and again, just because they threatened you the day before and now they're down a long hallway and you think they've got something in their hand, proximity until they get close to you, you don't know that. You have no concept of what they've done, what they have. So that's another one. You got to be real careful as far as proximity goes. I know there's this whole 21 feet tool or drill thing.
Yeah, I'm so sick.
And if you're not familiar with it, it says if somebody has a knife in their hand at 21 feet, they'll reach you and cut you before you ever get your gun out. First of all, I have never been mugged at 21 feet.
Thank you.
Every time I've been punched in the face, it has been up close and personal. Nobody.
I know that's some serious punch
Right?
from 21 feet.
It's like, I am coming to punch you in the
That's
nose.
a punch and a half.
Yeah. If somebody yells at me from 21 feet, you're coming to punch me in the nose.
Hey!
Yeah. As slow and fat as I am, I'm out. And
I
I'm
know, right?
I'm getting in my car and
I
going
will
away.
happily roll away. Thank
Yeah.
you.
So, and we'll get into that in a little bit with duty to retreat. But yeah, there's no reason for me to stick around if somebody threatens me from that far away. And the last thing, when you're looking at serious bodily harm, another thing you need to consider is what's called jeopardy. Just because a person is armed and has an opportunity to kill you doesn't mean that you're in any true danger. So think about a police officer. I know this is kind of silly, but they have the other two. They have the ability, they've got the proximity if they're close to you. But is there any actual jeopardy there? No. Just because you see an open carrier in Walmart's do not just unload on them.
Right.
You know, 'cause that is, you know, and I've heard a couple people say that they would draw down on an open carrier.
It's like, dude, no.
What are you freaking
What are you
nuts?
doing?
Yeah, I
What are
mean,
you doing?
they're within their right, and I understand everyone's nervous right now, but yeah, they have the ability. Sure, they probably have the opportunity, but what possible reason would they have to shoot you? You know, you are not in jeopardy just because you see somebody with a gun.
Right.
And some people make that assumption is they've got a gun, they're an issue for me. So, yeah, be careful with that kind of stuff, you guys. You get yourself in real big trouble real fast.
And with that, the whole open carry, just because you can do something doesn't mean you shouldn't, or you should, excuse me.
What?
Yeah. Like, there was a dude in Walmart once. Yeah, get ready with the bell on this one. There was a dude in
was this common
Walmart
sense?
once. My gosh. And he literally was open carrying a Glock 19. And just for GP, I wanted to see how close could I get to him.
Oh.
I was like totally right behind him. Right behind him. And he wasn't paying 2 cents worth of attention to me. And honestly, I am trained enough that I totally could have disarmed him right then and there.
Should have tapped on it.
I know, right? And be like, tag, it's mine, and you're dead, you know? Why on earth are you doing that? And plus, everybody around him was nervous and everything else. And I'm like, dude, just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I will fight for your right for open carry. You are absolutely within your rights to do it, but there is a time and place sometimes. And I know some people do it just to prove points and some people do honestly do it to intimidate people. I feel like we are still within our period where we're trying to prove that we're not dangerous.
Yes.
We're trying to prove that we are friendly.
And you are going totally against that. You're making it harder for all of us.
And again, the rallies and stuff, the open carry walks,
That's
great.
different.
They are political statements.
Yep.
But if you're slinging an AR over your shoulder and going into Walmart, the soccer mom and a 3-year-old are not going to understand your right at that point. They're not going to be like, yay, go open carrier.
Exactly. They don't care about your right
No.
because you're infringing on their right to feel safe and secure.
Yeah, and there's a balance there. I understand that. But I still lean towards you do your thing, open carry, but don't be a knucklehead. But that's just me. And it's hard for one knucklehead to not tell another knucklehead not to do something.
There's a whole lot of knuckleheads going around.
And listen, knuckleheads are, we call them wombats in our family. Wombats.
Okay.
Yeah.
We need to talk. That 901 talk is extending out. Jeez.
So, yeah, it's, it is what it is. So, again, those three things, under that condition, reasonable and honest belief of danger, you need to show the ability and the proximity and the jeopardy before you're getting crazy defining what's honest belief of danger. Be real careful with that because one person's definition is not another person's. Again, if there's a weapon involved, yep, absolutely. Depending on the weapon, you're going to have to make some decisions sometimes. I would say if somebody's got a brick in their hand, lethal force. They're at least getting a gun pointed at them from my world.
Yep.
Another question I get on serious bodily harm and death is dogs. If I'm attacked by a dog,
Fido going down.
I am shooting that dog in the face. I don't care.
A few times.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I know people look at dogs and they're like, that's like my kid. I was like, technically in Ohio, that's property.
Dogs can kill you.
A serious bodily harm, minimum.
Yeah.
And they will, how many stories have we seen of people getting eaten by their dogs
Yes.
or other people's dogs?
Yes.
So I get that one a lot. But yeah, I would say under serious bodily harm, if a dog is attacking you, it absolutely is game on. Game on. I should stop using that term. It's a little too glib.
No, I like game on. It's
So,
no,
yeah.
homie, game on.
Yeah, we got to be careful with some of those type of things. So,
But in all this that we're talking about, I think there are two words that we need to mention that would seriously help mitigate a lot of this. And those two words are situational awareness.
please define that for the crowd.
That means not texting on your phone, not walking and doing whatever, not being in la la land when you're out in public. You need to be aware of who's around you, what's around you, what's going on around you at all times until you get back to the safety and security of your home. You need to be on guard 24/7. You just must. And a lot of situations that people find themselves in probably could have been avoided if they weren't texting or being otherwise distracted or something like that. It is super, I know, right? It is super, super important to be aware of what's going on around you at all times, especially if you carry a firearm.
Guys, if you're paying for the show, you got your money's worth. If you're not paying for it, then you got your money's worth. That is priceless, you guys. Situational awareness plays so heavily into self-defense that it's not even funny. Especially if you're carrying your gun, you need to be so aware so that you're not put into a position
exactly
that gets you there. The third condition you have to meet in Ohio to prove self-defense is you have a duty to retreat. Now, if your situational awareness is up, you're probably going to end up not having to worry about duty to retreat, because you probably won't walk into the situation in the first place, hopefully. I mean, it's life. Sometimes you walk into stuff. Sometimes you don't know what's going on. That's life. But duty to retreat, if you do end up inside of some situation, you have to try to safely remove yourself from that situation. So this gets into I walked in somewhere and somebody was yelling and screaming, and now they're screaming at me. I'm going to draw my gun and shoot them. Nope. You need to try to
turn around and I'm going to go right out the way I came in.
Yeah. So in the booklet, it says if you can safely remove yourself from that situation, you must.
Then you do that.
If you make a duty, good Lord, 12-year-old.
Where's the bell?
12-year-old.
How many hours have you been up again?
Oh my gosh, don't get me going. So yeah, if you end up in a verbal confrontation, you have to try to remove yourself from that situation. If you end up fighting somebody, you're probably going to lose your right to self-defense if you suddenly end up having to get into a fight. And it's a lethal force situation because you didn't try to remove yourself. Now, there are times you can't remove yourself safely. Sometimes you have to fight. And if you met the other two conditions, quite frankly, the third one, the duty to retreat, if you couldn't retreat, then by the other two conditions, you're probably covered. And you're probably going to be able to prove why you use lethal force in self-defense. So, yeah, there's some stuff. If you follow these three rules, you guys, this will keep you out of a lot of stuff in Ohio. Castle doctrine plays into that a little bit. Ohio is not a stand your ground state. We don't have the situation where if I'm in a situation, in Ohio you have to retreat. In stand your ground states, you don't have to retreat. Ohio, we've got castle doctrine. Do we still
have to retreat?
Yeah, we still got that condition. They're trying to, if I remember correctly. And Candy, correct me if I'm wrong here. But castle doctrine, we don't have to retreat in our car in our home.
Right.
We have castle doctrine. Somebody, if I remember correctly, introduced stand your ground November. Don't quote me on this.
That's what I'm saying. I know that was out there, and I'm not sure.
I don't know that it passed yet.
I don't know if that passed yet.
So for next week, we will check on that.
We'll know. Yes, next week we'll know for sure. Dan, I'm going to be making a phone call to you, so you can let me know.
Yeah. So the only way you could really stand your ground in Ohio is under castle doctrine in your home or in your car. If you're there legally and not doing anything illegal, you don't have a duty to retreat from your house or your car. Now, like I said, I know that was introduced in November. It could have gone through, and I missed it. That happens all the time. But I don't know that it would, if they introduced it that late, I don't know that it would be law just yet. Was that introduced around the same time that they were talking about constitutional carry? Is that the same?
There was that whole mishmash of all different stuff. I have to check on that, and we'll know by next week. Yeah. But I tell you what, if I'm in a car, I don't care if I have a duty to retreat or not. That bad boy's going in drive. My foot is going on the accelerator, and I'm out of there.
Biggest bullet in the world.
Pretty much.
And, if you run over them, thump, thump. I personally would need to make sure what happened. I would back up.
I know, just to make sure. I know. Did I hit something? Wait a minute.
So, yeah, that's...
Were you calling me?
This is crazy. We are out of time already? That's nuts. How did that happen?
Well,
we were having fun, I guess.
I know. How do we keep doing that?
That's because we're good and we're having fun. So
yes.
I would like to continue this next week and talk more about castle doctrine, stand your ground, and some other legal
because you got a whole lot of highlighting that we didn't even get to.
I know, right? Look at all that stuff.
Oh my gosh, look at you. Yeah, I didn't know you actually print this stuff out.
Believe it or not, I try to prep for this stuff. I know it doesn't sound like it, but
I know, right? Ring the bell.
Happens, it happens. Well, guys, thank you for joining in. You can always catch up to us on my website is Ohio Personal Protection, ohioppt.com. Candy, you got a website out there or anything where they can reach you? Or Well Armed Woman, best way?
Yes.
Awesome. So Well Armed Woman Summit chapter, right?
Yes,
Summit chapter.
Summit County. Ohio.
So
Yes.
check it out.
Woohoo.
Thank you guys for joining us, and we will catch you next week.